Well, welcome everybody. As soon as the assembly members are seated, we'll get going this evening. When Assembly Member Mosier walks in, we should all turn and stare at him because he's now a minute late. Not to make him feel awkward or anything, but. Time's that 6 o'clock meeting start there. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. I will call to order the regularly scheduled meeting of Tuesday, November 12th, 2024. Please join me for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The Assembly of the City and Borough of Sitka would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional first people of Sitka. With gratitude, we proceed on Tlingit Ani. Jess, roll call, please.
Mayor Eisenbeis.
Here.
Mr. Mosier.
Here.
Mr. Pike.
Here.
Mr. Yestad.
Here.
Mr. Christensen.
Here.
Ms. Carlson. Here. Mr. Saline.
Here. Thank you. Any correspondence or agenda changes this evening?
I have one.
John?
I'm going to embarrass you, but as part of the National League of Cities 100-year celebration, they opened up a Centennial Under 40 Impact Award, which is to seek and recognize, celebrate the achievements of elected officials under the age of 40 from NLC member cities. The endeavor aimed to spotlight young, diverse elected leaders from across the country who significantly impact their communities through their dedication to public service, effective governance, and community development. And we were notified today that Mayor Eisenbeis was awarded the National League of Cities Centennial Under 40 Impact Award.
I was also notified today that they're holding a conference starting tomorrow in Tampa. So I should be on a plane right now for this instead of here, but didn't think I could make that. Yeah, thank you to all of those who made that nomination and award possible. This is it sounds like the canned answer, but this is a team effort. It's not just me up here, it's everybody. So it's you guys as much as me, and I'm glad that Sitka was able to bring this award home. Any other correspondence or agenda changes this evening? Okay, no ceremonial matters. So moving on to special reports. Is anyone here for government to government this evening? Municipal boards, commissions, committees? Municipal departments? The school district? And students and guests for special reports. Seeing none, that'll bring us to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item off of tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual.
Good afternoon. My name is Austin Cranford. I am here today because I submitted a records request regarding any records pertaining to the usage reporting or recording of controlled substances at the shelter over on Jarvis Street. I received that record request back today after putting it in on the, I believe it was the 22nd of last month. So it was a little bit delayed considering 10 days is the statutory requirement. But I was told by the clerk's office that records or information cannot be located or do not exist, and the requester was notified today. And I'm a little bit confused because under state and federal law, records of controlled substances have to be required. In fact, I have the CFR under paragraph F, and I can give this to whoever later. It says each registered manufacturer, distributor, importer, exporter, mobile narcotic treatment program, compounder of narcotic treatment programs, et cetera, shall maintain inventories and records of controlled substances as follows. And then it says inventories of records of controlled substances listed under Schedule 1 and Schedule 2 shall be maintained a certain way, and then 3, 4, and 5 shall be maintained another way. My question is, we have these state and federal laws that say these records should exist, yet I am being told the records do not exist. Meanwhile, we know that animals were put down 2-3 months ago, and state law requires that animals be put down humanely. So we're running into an issue of, well, what's going on here? I would like a response from the city, preferably by the end of the week, of why these records don't exist, and if drugs weren't used, how the animals were put down. Because, yeah, this is clearly a violation of state and federal law on multiple levels. We have animal cruelty, we have failure to inventory controlled substances, and a bunch of other things. So thank you.
Anyone else this evening under persons to be heard? Any item not on tonight's agenda? Seeing none, that'll bring us to consent agenda.
I move to approve the consent agenda consisting of item A, approve the minutes of the October 22nd assembly meeting.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Is there any public comment? Jess?
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes?
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mr. Saline,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Pike.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 on the consent agenda.
Thank you. Item B, please.
I move to appoint Robert Haddle to a 3-year term on the Police and Fire Commission and to a 3-year term on the LEPC under Category 6 members of the public.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to appoint Robert Haddle to the respective commissions and committees. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation? Robert, just when you thought you didn't have to go to meetings frequently, it looks like you'll have some frequent meetings, so we appreciate that. Jess?
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes?
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Saline.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 to appoint Mr. Robert Haddle to a 3-year term commission on the Police and Fire Commission and a 3-year term on the LEPC committee under Category 6.
Thank you. Item C, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-24 on second and final reading, making supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2025 airport terminal project.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 24-24. Is there any public comment? Assembly deliberation? Jess?
Yes, on item C for finished business 2026-24, sorry. Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Saline,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mayor Isenbeis.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 on second reading.
Item D, please.
I move to approve a memorandum of understanding between the city and Borough of Sitka and the Sitka Dock Company LLC and authorize the municipal administrator to execute the document.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve a memorandum of understanding between the city and Sitka Dock Company. Is there any public comment?
Good evening, all. My name is Leah Mason. I am here to say that I find the decision to go ahead with an MOU based on the existing data and a timeframe which seems unnecessarily long and a absolute dearth of net benefit that accrues to us from undertaking such an agreement, that this should not be agreed to. Thank you.
Any other public comment on the MOU between the city and Sitka Dock Company?
For the record, Valerie Nelson. I would, in my mind, think that this is a good step forward. I know that people are concerned about numbers, and I would only hope that we don't try and rewrite the whole MOU or MOA at the table again tonight. Thank you.
Any further comment? Back to the assembly for deliberation.
Yeah, we had a good discussion about this when you were here. So I can tell you that, again, when I first got this, it took me multiple readings to figure out what it was actually saying. And I have some real issues with it. It strikes me as very one-sided. I mean, I know that it's an MOU, there's no enforcement of any kind. It can't be in such a thing. And really, in my experience, MOUs really only work between governments, like the MOU with the Sitka tribe, because you have two governments and they've said that. But an MOU between a private entity and the city is problematic. But my main problem with this is, you know, I could probably go with it if we said, okay, we're going to keep the numbers, everybody below 7,000, but that's not what it says. It says the city's going to give up everything. We're going to give up all of our lightering fees. We're going to give up, and there's no restrictions. There's nothing in there that says they can't put two Supermaxes at the same time. I looked over and over again. And I heard references to a policy that they're not going to do that, but it's not in the MOU. And we can do that anyway. We don't need an MOU to do that. If we decide we want to restrict by not bringing in the lettering folks. I personally think that the folks coming in on the letters are less of a they're less problematic because there's less buses. Maybe they still go on tours, but they're already downtown. They don't have to get on a bus. They also tend to be smaller, higher priced boats that have people with more money, which is what we're after. So I am not going to vote for this because it's too one-sided. And I don't see a lot of benefit for the city. And I see a lot of, because it's going to cost us money. And like I said, 7,000 is probably not the number I would have picked as an ideal number. And if we were both working towards that, I'd be much more inclined to vote for this, but we're not. It's all in the city. And I don't think that's fair. And I don't think it's a good deal for the city.
Kevin?
Ms. Mayor, thank you, Tor, for your comments. I appreciate it very much. I would tend to disagree. I think this is a good step in the following the recommendations of the Tourism Task Force. We can basically get out of it at any time. And then the other part of it, I understand, Tori, your comments about us, it all being one-sided. Well, technically, in a way, maybe that's true, but the reduction in revenue, I don't believe will be as significant. Sorry, I'm just not speaking that one right. The other point is getting private industry that's invested millions of dollars to go against their business interests, I think is, that's asking a lot. And it's not just because, this is a local business. In fact, the point is, we didn't have a dock. People are forgetting how we had, tourism was going down and down and down. And then this company basically built it and brought tourism back. And we wouldn't even be having this conversation if it wasn't for them. I believe they have good intentions and will abide by the spirit of this memo. And like I said, we can get out of it anytime. There is going to be no item that is perfect, not at all. But I think it's really important too for timing. We just keep humming and homing about this. We're already a season and a half or 2 seasons out because cruise ships have already booked. We need to get this done so we can get some continuity. Or I am just like really nervous this time. I wasn't last time. I think it's important to do it because it's something that the community wants, and it's fair. It's not perfect, but it's fair. And that's it for now. I'm sure I'll think of other things.
JJ?
Thank you for everyone in the community that emailed us or has talked to me on the street or in every way you're comfortable on this topic. I really appreciate the concern for Sitka that was demonstrated. It helped me see that this is twofold. There's some policy decisions in this, but then there's also is this the document to advance our policy? And I think we need to discuss both of those pieces here tonight, because there are ways to look at the policy pieces. The majority of section 1A, there's a lot of CVS promises here. And perhaps this isn't the document. We still want to make those decisions, but we do it in a fashion that isn't making promises to a private business owner. These are either internal policies or we're making promises to Sitka. I think the MOU format has the most confusion and conflict for me and what I've seen and heard from Sitkans. And I would just perhaps want to hear the rest of this group on, is this the policy that we like, or is it the format we like or don't like? Because I think that there's some great strategies here that when paired with the birthing policy that's already been published from the Sitka Dock Company that we're kind of nodding to in this document, but there's really no promises from that group in this document, that maybe there's some teamwork to be had in 2 separate policy statements that maybe in the future get joined in another fashion. But I'm less willing to vote forward this document with our policy and perhaps want to explore a lightering policy or an internal document that lays out how our docks operate with visitors.
Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm kind of in the middle of between Tor. I didn't read it, Tor, the same way you did. I think, this is a document that speaks to what the city's going to do. And that's because it's the only thing that we control, actually. So how our response to this is, as JJ points out, kind of a policy statement. And So, and I don't know how, JJ, we would have a policy that doesn't reference actions by that group. So, a policy statement in isolation would have to be reactive to something in order to be, for us to not lighter or not allow lightering in response to increased numbers from what? And so I think having a document that explains a little bit about how those are related makes more sense to me. So I didn't read it in terms of the city's giving everything up. I read it in terms of the task force that we established, gave us direction. They said what they wanted, where we needed to go. Our response to it is something like this. As I said last time, it's not a perfect document by any stretch of the imagination, but as Kevin said, it is a step forward. It's a step toward where we're headed. And this is not a binding document on us any more than it's a binding document on anyone else. And I think as a statement of intent and a policy statement going forward in relationship to a private entity and the actions that they're taking, I'm not sure that this is a bad thing. I'm not sure that this is not a step forward. And we also talked last time about making sure that our new tourism commission had a chance to take a look at this and offer us some suggestions about how to make this better going forward. But any negotiations with the private entity are going to be difficult, and we don't stand in a particularly strong spot to negotiate. And so I viewed this as a policy statement in reference to the actions that other people are taking as what we will do at that point in time. I think a policy about lightering that says when the numbers reach X, we get that. I don't think there's enough reference in that kind of policy to be actionable. So then we're just where we are now. We could do nothing. I think that's a response that we've heard from some people in the community. And we could do nothing, and that's what we're doing now. But then we don't have any reference, and we're not taking any action, and we're not responding to what the community indicated to us through our tourism task force. So.
Chris?
Yeah, I feel like you kind of hit it on the head there, Tim. I share a lot of the same sentiments. I know we've had a lot of emails concerned about the city losing potential revenues through our lightering facilities. Last year, our revenues at the lightering facilities were $175,000 going towards the harbor fund. That's including the port security fees. This document, I don't believe would cut out have our lightering go to nothing. So I don't think we're going to lose all of that. Could we potentially lose some of it with the way this document is written? Maybe, but maybe scheduling would allow it to still reach those numbers. But I do know that the Port and Harbors Commission is working on different ways of generating revenue because of our rate study that was recently presented. And these facilities are definitely a big part of that because they are being utilized not only by cruise ship tenders, but by a lot of charters and sightseeing boats and stuff like that. Harbor Master recently had Allen Marine start picking up at the O'Connell Bridge facility, trying to alleviate some congestion in Crescent Harbor here. So I think those facilities, whether there's cruise ships tendering at them or not, will continue to generate revenue. So I'm not overly concerned about losing revenue. We may lose some, but I think we'll pick some up on the backside of it too. So, I know we could keep kicking this can down the road, but I feel like this is an attempt to do what the Tourism Task Force asked us. Obviously, a lot of that data that we did get back a lot of it was good, but some of it was inconclusive. I do think more data needs to be found to continue to go down this path, but I believe this is a good starting point, and it is something that we can continue to work with over the years. So I think as we collect more data, we can continue to work with this. And I just do want to emphasize that the longer we kick this can down the road, the more bookings are being made. They are working on 26. So if we want to actually have any meaningful change within a couple of years, we do need to do something. So I'm in support of this for now. And it does have the ability to continue to get worked as more information becomes available. So that's where I sit.
Some good points were raised for me in this conversation. I'm not going to disagree that this is a one-sided MOU. It's showing the city's intent to exercise the one lever that we have, and that's our community-owned birthing facilities and lightering facilities. We can make those adjustments to make sure that there are no more 10,000 passenger days, which I think all of us are very desirous of. On the other hand, if we do nothing, we are guaranteed 10,000 passenger days this next year. And I'm not in favor of that. That's a drastic overload. It's important for me to note that the boats that came here in later October were lightered boats. We've heard concerns about condensing the season back and eliminating the shoulder seasons. And that's exactly what this will do as well, is it shows our intent to not utilize our facilities for early April and late October sailings, which in 26 anyway, Norwegian Cruise Line has indicated that they will not be bringing their boats that late and that early, which I think came from strongly worded concerns from not only our municipality, but from other municipalities in Southeast Alaska. What I think I heard on this that I think I really like is essentially this is our docking policy, and we're putting it out for public consideration. Do I agree that we could start just working on a docking policy? Yeah, I think that may be the better way to go, to codify this so that is where we go forward. But I would like to start here in order to give the notice, to indicate to not only the community, but to the cruise lines that may be calling in 25, that you're probably going to have to shift your sailings around. You're going to have to change some obligations. And that won't come without heartache on their side. But we need to hold up to our commitment here. So I think I'll vote for this tonight, just to start the process. As Tim indicated, this is our statement of intent. This is where we want to get with our municipal docking policy. And I think it's a great document to start that process. And then we can work on it later. I actually had a large thought tonight that I would come in and vote no on this, to not go forward with it. And that was because of a lot of the emails that we read today that basically were all or nothing. Either give me 0 cruise ships or I don't want this. And I don't think that was as productive of a statement as it might have seemed, because if we don't vote for this, like I said earlier, we will get those 10,000 passenger days. I don't want them, and I don't think anybody sitting at this table wants them. So as of now, I think I'll vote for this and then continue to look at ways where we can incorporate this into code and have a solidified docking policy on the municipality side. Tor?
Yeah, I mean, I can read the room. It sounds like this is going to pass. And the issue, one of the biggest issues starts with the very first one. There's absolutely nothing in here to prevent 2 Supermaxes going in and out there. And there's nothing to prevent those boats in the shoulder season from going out to the cruise ship terminal and instead of docking. And it also, because of the nature of an MOU, if situations change somewhat, like what happened up in Skagway, was it 2-3 years ago, where all of a sudden we got hit with a bunch of big ships we weren't expecting during COVID. At what point, if we're going to pass this, do we say it's not being followed, even the limited amount that we've asked them to? Because I would say that if we want to restrict our berthing policy, we should just do that on our own. And that should be more, I mean, it could be done easily in time for the bookings coming. Because that's the only real output of this. In my experience with MOUs, we follow them. The people we have them with, yeah, not so much. And because we're democracy and we sorry, I feel like I'm at a press conference or something. If we're going to pass this, we should really be thinking in terms of how many times do we see the spirit of it broken before we say, all right, forget it. Because all it would take is, same with the quiet days. There's nothing in here that says they won't bring in boat Supermaxes on quiet days or Panamaxes, excuse me. But, so if okay, now it's working. Anyway, so we should be thinking that. I mean, how often, when do we say, okay, it's just not working and forget it?
Scott?
We're so weak on it, I mean, if we passed a thing right now tonight, says we're locking up 2026, no lightering crafts, and then negotiate. Right now, I'm not going for it because town is cut in half on it, and signing it, it's that business plan is solid no matter what happens. And the only thing we can do is just shut down all lightering facilities for 2026 and then negotiate with them. That's not going to change them at all, but I don't want to sign it because it doesn't do anything. It reminds me of a treaty 150 years ago. It just doesn't do anything.
JJ?
I will be voting no tonight. Thank you for the discussion at the table. This is all things that we will be doing and we will be communicating to Sitka about. And there's no need to sign an agreement with the private entity to tell Sitka what our municipal infrastructure will be used for. We could, within a week, get this policy going if the group decides to direct our staff to do so, and it could be effective in the same amount of time frame for the 2026 season, but under our control and not under the term section here, section 3. The boat company would have to agree to our changes, not that they would, hold hostage our updates, but we don't need to include outside entities if it's not necessary. So I support the policy, but not in this document.
Kevin?
Thank you, everyone, for your comments. Bringing up a lot of points. I would tend to disagree with Tor and JJ. I appreciate your insight, though. It's actually very helpful. We keep saying we can't trust an MOU. It's not going to work. We have lots of MOUs that work in town. I believe firmly that this was done. By the way, it took a while to get this done. I think it was done in good faith. And I have no doubts that it will be abided by to the best that they can. And if they don't, then we can get out of it and we'll figure something else out. But if we don't sign this, right, or do this, it sends the entirely wrong message to the industry and to this community. It brings in, we don't do it or something like this, it will bring uncertainty, and we don't want uncertainty. The whole point of this has been to bring certainty. As some, people are concerned that we're too many or too much. We're kind of outlining through policy what our goal is. And it's important that we make a commitment. And like I said, we can always back out of it if they're not abiding by theirs. But I think it would show a real sign of bad faith on our part to not negotiate or to sign this after we've already negotiated it. It is not perfect, but nothing is. We have the ability to get out of it anytime, basically, as they do as well. But this brings certainty, which we need very much, so we can move on to other things. I mean, we'll always be keeping our eyes on it, obviously, but This was a goal of the task force, and it's a good one. I'm very glad we're doing it because I don't want 10,000 people either. No way. And yes, this cannot protect us from two supermaxes. There's no way, but nothing about this is enforceable. We're having a good faith agreement, understanding between the municipality, City of Borough of Sitka, and the owners. And I want to give it a chance. I think we should sign or vote yes and have this thing signed.
Further deliberation from the assembly? Jess?
Okay, on the motion to approve the MOU between the City and Borough of Sitka and the Sitka Dock Company LLC, Ms. Carlson,
No.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Saline,
No.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen. Okay, motion passes 4-3 on item D.
Thank you. That brings us to a new business item E, please.
I move to approve a memo of understanding between the City and Borough of Sitka and the Sitka School District for facility maintenance.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this MOU between the city and the school district. John, I understand Ron has an introduction for this one.
Yeah, if Ron can come up here, mainly just to answer some questions and how this was developed. But as he's coming up, if I could say a few words about it. As was approved in this fiscal year budget, basically merging the school district building maintenance with the city's maintenance structure. It's kind of new grounds for us. And this document is a first attempt to kind of outline what maintenance is, what that means, what the how we prioritize things, and how we kind of separate the responsibilities. So we're open to any changes as well. This has been through the school board already, and they have reviewed it. But if there are any things that should be addressed, we'd love to hear that. But Ron, do you have anything else to add?
No, I will say, just for the record, good evening. My name is Ron Vincent, and I'm the existing electric utility director. This agreement was developed while I was the public works director, so that's why I'm up here today. I will add a little bit of notation about the sections that are included within the document, and then you guys can go forward with any questions you have. We have a section that kind of kicks off the document that outlines a general scope of services that are to be provided and not provided. The not provided items, the items that will not be included in the scope, are things that came up in discussion that we thought would be worth pointing out for future discussion. Second, we have a section that outlines the resources that are transferred. So this includes the transfer of the 4 maintenance staff that were transferred in this last year's FY25 budget planning, the transfer of equipment, materials, workspace, and there's a small section in there that describes the temporary transfer of vehicles until the point that the CBS is ready to change those out, at which case they would be released back to the school district for their own disposal if they want to recoup any remaining value. There's another section in here that describes the capital improvement process. Something to note about this, the capital improvement process is a little bit different than what would be typical of the school district's existing capital improvement process or the borough's capital improvement process. It's kind of a blend of the two. It gets input from kind of the ground level up. There's an approval point at which the administrator and the superintendent would go through and give their approval and input. And then it moves forward to the school district for their approval and input. And then finally, it would sync into the CBS's budget process. Another section in here outlines maintenance priorities. So it gives some definition to how maintenance activities would be prioritized. It starts with urgent activities, which would be more life-threatening issues, and it scales all the way down to items that would be more nice to haves in the long term. So that'll help the team prioritize some of these items. Communications and collaborations. There's a section in there that describes how communications will be made to make sure that we have kind of an optimized chance of success for this merge. There's also a dispute resolution process. Again, that kind of touches on the communication and collaboration. It gives kind of an expandable approach to escalating issues to a higher level of management and making sure that people are communicating those issues in a reasonable way. And then lastly, there were some terms that were put in the end of the document that describe the general term. There's a renewal term that's automatic every year. There is a way for the parties to exit the agreement. I think that there would be some additional means that would have to get included in that because there's budgetary items that would be attached that's not included in the document. That's just implied. And then there's the signature section. So.
Thank you, Ron. If we have further questions, we'll call you back up.
Thank you.
Is there any public comment on the memorandum of agreement between the city and borough of Sitka and the Sitka School District for facility maintenance? Seeing none, it'll bring it back to the assembly for deliberation. Tor?
Yeah, I just want to, first of all, thank both staffs for working this out. I mean, this actually excites me a lot. I think this is great. Obviously, there's going to be some bumps in negotiating things, but what I see is doing is moving us toward one, we're all city of Sitka, and there's over the years been city and the school and sometimes the butt heads. And I think the more the two organizations are intertwined, the less that's going to happen because, you know, the city is going to be very aware of what the physical plan is doing up at the various schools. And they're going to be very aware of the city's limitations on, and so I think this is a really good thing. I think this is workable. I'm sure that there'll be some tweaks over the years, but but I also know that this took a lot of work from both the school staff and the city staff. So again, I want to thank you guys for putting in that work and doing this. And because this is big, I think that this is gonna, I mean, it's gonna make the schools work better. And that's always good. And not only that, but Tim will have a warm classroom and that's good too. So, but I'm excited about this. And I think that hopefully this is a sign of us, you know, all pulling together. So I'm very glad to see this.
Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, that's Tor beat me to it. I just want to say a huge thank you to the staff of both city and the school districts, as well as the school board for their help and collaboration with this. This is an extremely good project, very thorough, and it is so warming to know that we're at this place now where we're having this agreement, and it does. It reflects that we're not at odds, but we're trying to find a way to work together and help one another. And I'm just thrilled to be able to vote yes tonight. And this, another thought that occurred to me is this sets the stage for future assemblies. Because, you know, over time, people can forget what people's intentions and this and that. This really lays it out very well, so people can look back on this and see, okay, why were we doing this? And it eliminates that. So thank you so much. I'm a yes.
Scott?
I'm really excited about this too. The city has a real good chance by utilizing the mechanical code to our advantage, to where we have a skill set now that's a city employee that can fix and maintain the Blatchley dehumidifier, every heat pump, every walk-in, every reach-in that we have in the school district and this building. And the savings alone by having an in-house person, and he'll still be available to go out on the weekends when something breaks, but I'd like to see the savings be used to help fixed income people, like allow seniors to swim for free at Blatchley. So I'm really going to be following this close because city's lacking in utilizing skill sets that we have in the city to cross trade, if you will. I'll be voting for it.
JJ?
Got a few questions for Ron, maybe even Melissa. I don't know. We'll see. So in the capital improvements planning process section, it talks about a capital project being something of $10,000 value or more. Did we forget a zero on that, or is $10,000 really what's called capital improvement?
Yeah, so, yeah, Melissa can probably do this a lot better. That it is correct, but.
Yep, our definition, so 5,000 over is a fixed asset, 10,000, and if there's labor, it's considered capital.
Yeah, that's a very robust process for something of $10,000-$11,000, and I understand that that's the system, but yet there's a lot of staff time going to be involved in smaller things. Is there some other strategy we use in other avenues to lessen the burden of staff time or a robust
So there
process?
is, if we're repairing an existing asset, that's just going to be a repair. That's not going to fall under that. If we're substantially extending the life or adding a new asset, that's where it would become capital.
Okay, so a repair would fall under the maintenance activities and then would get prioritized in that fashion, but an improvement, replacement, or refurbishment would get on this list for the full treatment here. Okay, that's just quite a low value, but knowing that that's how it works, I'm even more impressed that you guys can do what you do in the finance department and public works, because those, I mean, a copy machine these days probably costs more than $10,000. So thank you for your hard work. I guess, Ron, with questions for you, in the steps, I appreciate the detail, and I think with having a MOU with people in education, words matter quite a bit. They have a practiced understanding of saying what they mean and meaning what they say. And the definition here of capital projects says it shall be defined as an improvement, replacement, refurbishment. But the name of this section is capital improvement planning process. So it's an improvement, but it's also replacement. Is there some term to incorporate all of that under one, or is improvements really the best word for that?
I'm not. Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
So it is that for us, it's a very standard language that we use, that we throw around, CIP, and that's our capital improvement plan. So I think that is probably just a result of us being very comfortable with that terminology.
Thank you. It just helps to me see it and understand it, and then hopefully that helps the group that we're joining with to understand the intent behind this. And that brings me to additional words. If repairs are really what we're talking about with maintenance, I find maintenance to be a tough word, because just like beauty is in the eye of the beholder, maintenance can mean an infinite amount of definitions to people. And I don't see a definition of maintenance here, and that is the kind of the crux of this agreement. I know we have good people in place to facilitate this process, but as we go forward, as we kind of advance past this group, what's written down really does matter for engineers and educators. And there's a way to kind of build out a definition of maintenance and to specifically say repairs are within this side of things, even if the value of the repair is over 10,000. I think being explicit in there could help with that clarity.
Any other questions for Melissa while she's up here? Thank you, Melissa. John?
I do, Melissa, don't run off too far. Just if you can answer one, sorry. Because I know the capital improvement planning that's come up before, and also the $10,000 threshold, and just, I know the answer to this, but I want you to be able to explain it. That capital improvement plan is codified. That's one of the two things that the administrator has to provide to the assembly every year. So trying to get that language common is the intent for being in here. But also, can you explain where that 10,000 figure comes from, why it's in here and why we use it everywhere else, and how that kind of works with federal monies as well?
Yeah, there are, we would certainly have a higher fixed asset threshold than $5,000. But it is built into federal code. And since we accept federal money, we are stuck with those lower thresholds. And really the difference that we use is, something is a repair. If we have, I think a good example would be heat pump. We've been talking a lot about heat pumps. If we had a heat pump that was supposed to last another 5 years, if it needed $11,000 of repair to make it last that 5 years, that would be a repair. However, if we're putting a new one in, it's going to last another 15 years. That's a substantial increase to the life. So that's where the difference is. And a lot of times there's internal conversations about all sorts of these, when an expense is identified, we kind of have to interrogate our public works team to make sure that we're sure about what flavor of appropriation we need.
Thank you. Anything else for Melissa while we have her up here? Anything else for Ron while we have him up here? Thank you both. Further assembly discussion, deliberation, Tim?
Yeah, thank you. It's funny you kind of ran across the maintenance word there, JJ, because this is an agreement between two different groups that have very different cultures and very different maintenance understandings. And maintenance prior to this was everything that needed to be done in the district, regardless of whether it had anything to do with the building or not. So, moving bleachers around, things like that. So I think that there's going to be an ongoing conversation, and this is actually, if there's any tension in it, this comes from those matching the cultures of what our understanding of maintenance really is. And so I think that's why I think you're seeing the word the way you are, and as undefined as it is because I think that's the definition that we're going to all have to come to over time. So as opposed to, I don't think we could impose on the school district, this is what it is, because, they do have some expectations and some needs that we're having to meet that would be definitely outside the normal scope of the maintenance program. So, and they're having to pick up a lot of pieces, as Ron pointed out, the whole part of what's not happening. You can read that as a list of things that were happening in maintenance and were things that maintenance was tasked with that they're no longer going to be doing. So I think it's a great agreement. I appreciate all the work, huge amount of work. It's taken quite a while because there has been a lot of back and forth in trying to mesh those two different ideas about what we need to get done. So, I think there is that provision in there also about evaluating this, and I think it's probably worthwhile to evaluate it a couple of times. This is a suggestion in the course of this year to get a better sense of it, so that people have a better sense of it. Because right now there's, teachers are used to what they used to see, and now they're seeing something different. And so it's not bad, it's just different. And I think that's part of the culture difference that we're seeing. So, but thank you for all the effort.
Tim, I was waiting for you to speak because I know you had some very real concerns with this. And I wanted to see if those were alleviated through this process, because I believed in your concerns, especially being able to see it from both sides. You bring perspective that I don't have on this. So it sounds as if as best as could be accomplished in a first iteration, that this is going to be a functional working document.
It already is. I mean, I think maintenance is involved right now. They, they have work orders and they've been working them through. I think there's some really big things that they've been working on, particularly the heat at this point in time. And sitting over here, are a bunch of my students who will benefit from the warmth in the shop when it happens, because it's currently kind of chilly and will be tomorrow. So wear your heavy coat. But they've been working off all those sorts of things. I mean, are there, is everybody in the school district just happy and tickled that maintenance is doing everything they could? Well, no, because they never were before, and they're just having to adjust to this thing. But I think everyone is seeing a very professional attitude on the part of the maintenance staff, and everybody's seeing professional responses to these things. And if you were to ask everybody in a year from now, I suspect that the comments and questions would be very different, because like I said, we're meshing two very different approaches to maintenance, where you could grab the guy out of the hallway and say, hey, I got this problem, and they'd fix it right then. And, no paperwork would ever happen, versus one where we're trying to make sure that we understand what's being asked and what's being expected. So in answer to your question, I think it's going, it's not going like bump free, but it is definitely moving forward. And I think people are seeing a very professional response from the city. So.
Yeah, that's encouraging, because that was some of my big concerns. Is we knew this was going to be a pretty intense document, which it is, and it was going to be a pretty intense agreement and a probably even more intense learning curve on it while everybody adjusts to new roles. The good news at the end of the day is we alleviate a monetary burden from the school district, something we've tried to do for quite a few years now and have just about tapped ourselves out of the ability to do as such. So we're helping out our school district as much as we can, and glad to hear that it's going forward. Also glad to know that it appears, standard dress code at Sitka High is a hoodie. So I'm sure everybody in your classroom will be, they'll be good. And once heat comes back, we might have to find a new dress code for them. It might be board shorts and t-shirts at that point.
Tim, is preventative maintenance not in the cultures of maintenance?
I would say preventative maintenance has been, I'm not going to suggest that what maintenance was happening before was not sufficient or, wasn't also professional. But preventative maintenance is a big part of what they do. But I think the last time one of our buildings was remodeled is closing in on 20 years. So everything that was done is getting old, and more of it is needing to be replaced. And so preventative maintenance is now just sort of an overwhelming task of, I think we're running into a whole lot of Melissa's point here. Like, we're going to have to evaluate what's a repair and what's a replacement pretty quick here, because, some of these things can't be fixed. They're beyond their useful life. And so, preventative maintenance is a key to it. And I know in talking with Ron, that's a huge part of it. Like, they will be on, and they were on a preventive maintenance schedule. Were they able to keep up with it? No. Are they able to keep up with it today? No, but they'll get there eventually. So.
John.
Thanks, Mayor. I think we're also going to learn a lot through this year's budget process and the capital improvement process on defining what maintenance is, what's repair, what's replacement. If you remember back with the original seasonal sales tax, that was very clearly tied to bond debt service on some repairs and a refurbishment needed to happen to those buildings. On the last ballot question, and I probably should have included it with the packet here, but there's some pretty specific language on what that seasonal sales tax is used for now. It kind of opens it up a little bit more, but it still has to be directed to the school facilities and the buildings and maintenance activities. That also provides some flexibility to to bond in the future if we have to, because we know that some of those buildings can be in pretty poor shape. So when I say we'll learn a lot through the capital improvement process this year, there may be a lot of wants and even needs from the school side. But when the entire packet comes forward with the assembly, you might have a $15 million roof repair staring at you that has to get done. And that sales tax would be the ideal first place to look. So some tough decisions will have to be made. And I know Melissa's run a few financial scenarios on what that looks like, because that seasonal sales tax can get eaten up pretty quickly depending on what the school needs are. So yes, you may see some changes in this document year after year, and I think this first budget process with this document will tell us a whole lot.
Anything further from the assembly? Jess?
On the motion to approve the MOA between the City and Borough of Sitka and the Sitka School District for facility maintenance. Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Mr. Saline,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 on item E.
Thank you. As it is the top of the hour, we will take a brief recess. Assembly members, please be seated when you're ready to continue. Good on your guys' side? I'm just checking. I'm not demanding. I know. Scotty jumped real quick there, though. All right, well, the assembly is seated, so we will jump back into our agenda tonight. That'll bring us to item F, please.
I move to approve the promotion of Brooke Volshnick from Controller to Finance Director.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the promotion of Brooke. Is there any public comment? Actually, I'm sorry, John, you have an introduction on this one?
I do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As stated in the memo, Melissa Haley has submitted her resignation and will be moving on as of April of next year, April 1st of next year. I mean, greatly appreciate the amount of work that she has done for this municipality and the amount of effort she puts in and extra hours. But something I'm very proud of is we've done a lot of work on the city staff side to build a good succession plan for folks to move up in the organization. And I'm proud to say that Brooke has stepped up and she's learned a lot under Melissa's guidance over the past few years. And I believe she's very highly qualified and well positioned for this, given her time and knowledge with the city financial structure. I think her resume speaks for itself, as is outlined in the packet, and I hope you support the hire of Brooke for the finance director position.
Thank you, John. Is there any public comment on the promotion of Brooke? Back to the assembly for deliberation. Tor?
I just gonna say, I got our packet, it's a Friday, and I'm cruising through reading, okay, that was wait a minute. Wait, how come I'm just now hearing about this? And so first of all, it's been a joy to work with Melissa over the years, and I'm just wondering if we vote no, will she stay? But I'm looking, I think Brooke will do a great job, but I'm really gonna miss working with Melissa. Especially during the budget season, and somehow or another she makes federal accounting rules, if not make sense, at least we understand where they're coming from. And so it will be missed. But I am really glad we're gonna have the long overlap. That's good. And so, but I was very sorry to see that.
Kevin?
Congratulations, Brooke. That's very exciting. I look forward to working with you in the future. Very happy that this is coming forth.
JJ?
I hope you never get tired of explaining the difference between the fiscal year and the calendar year for people.
Chris?
Yeah, I mean, first, I just wanted to say thank you to Melissa. You've done a great job. You've made all the financial documents very easy to understand. And it's been great working with you for all these years. So thank you. And yeah, I love that we do have a great succession plan. And Brooke has been coming up under Melissa and learning from her. So I think Brooke's going to do a great job. And yeah, definitely in favor.
Tim?
Yeah, I think the same thing. Melissa, it's been great working with you. I learned a lot, and there's a huge amount more to learn. So, and I appreciate Brooke being willing to step up and learn as she is going along. So, yeah, sad to see Melissa go, but look forward to working with Brooke.
And for me, I think this is exactly where the succession planning comes in huge, and working internally to get our people up to the level where, should there be a sickness or an extended absence, that people that are not normally in a role have the ability to fill. I think this also comes back to the assembly approving an extra position in the finance department this last year, and it gave some flexibility within the department to be able to cross-train the people. So this is a perfect case in point of what I hope to have happen in quite a few departments, is an upward mobility of everybody who starts there. Melissa, there's been a lot of thanks here, but I thank you for the overlap and the extended time between notice and departure. If anyone noted, which I very easily did, that it's a complete budget cycle that she's giving Brooke to mentor and help. Brooke already knows the budget cycle very well, but we'll have one on her own with a little bit of backup, which I think is huge. And Brooke, congratulations. If there's one request that I have, it's please don't speak finance to me. I don't understand that language. Plain English is best. And I think that's something that I've valued in the previous tenure and look forward to working with you on a plain English type basis. So thank you. Anything further from the assembly? Jess?
Yes, on the motion to approve the promotion of Brooke. Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Saline,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 on item F.
Item G, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-25 on first reading, making supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2025, Finance Department personnel and contract purchases services.
Second.
John, you have an introduction for this item?
I do. Thank you, Mayor. There's a reason why this item comes after the previous item. So as part of that succession planning and overlap, we are looking for an increase in contract purchase services by $9,000 to start the immediate recruitment of a controller. That's the position that Brooke currently fills. And we'd also like to increase appropriations by $78,000. So essentially that is a half FTE from now until June 30th. And the reason for that is if we can find a controller and get that controller on board now to start learning while there is overlap and have that employee be benefited instead of working for 6 months as a temp employee and not having any of the benefits turned on until July 1st, when the position does officially change. That makes it more appealing for someone to come in. This appropriation is here, hoping that we will find someone and get them hired. And notice that this half FTE expires at the end of this fiscal year. So if we don't find and hire somebody before the end of the fiscal year, this will not carry over into the next fiscal year. This is only just to cover the few months before June 30th.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on ordinance 24-25? Assembly deliberation. I think I understand it well, John. I think overlap is a key strength in order to keep the municipality rolling forward in a positive direction. Jess?
Yes, on motion to approve ordinance 2024-25 on first reading. Mr. Saline,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 on first reading on item G.
Thank you. Item H, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-26 on first reading, making supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2025, marine vessel haul out and shipyard project.
Second.
John, an introduction on this one, please.
Thanks, Mayor. I really didn't expect to talk this much tonight, so hopefully I can call Gary up to take some of the heat here. But I read this under correspondence or maybe reports a meeting or two ago. In the 2020/2021 statewide salmon disaster funding, the city was awarded $336,475. This appropriation is not only to accept that funding, but based on some of the needs of the marine vessel haul out and shipyard project at GPIP, the financial needs there, it seemed appropriate to recommend that that funding, once appropriated, be directed to that haul out project to cover some of the funding gap.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on ordinance 24-26?
Hi, Gary White with the Gary Paxton Industrial Park Director. So the board met last Thursday on the 7th and recommended that, of course, this money comes and is accepted to the city and be directed towards the project. As we were looking at the project updates, we're short on a couple of critical components, one being having any type of washdown pad. So once boats are hauled, they can be washed down in accordance with the DEC and EPA. And so they're going to come forward to you guys on the 26th meeting with another ask to be able to fund that. And we're still working on the details of that. But this will be critical to keep this project moving forward and have it being operational. Thank you.
Hello, Austin Cranford. I just wanted to mention that I do approve, and hopefully the assembly will also approve this measure. As can be seen in the memo mentioned that there's only about $64,000 remaining for the haul out. So this would give, we'll just say, just under $500,000 by the time it's all said and done to the haul out if this was approved. And the reason I'm bringing this up is I don't know how many people have been paying attention to the Federal Reserve or any of the economic reports that are coming out, but inflation is still up, and the New York Federal Reserve has continued to revise their recession projections, with August 2025 now being closer to 66 to 70% chance of recession by August of 2025. The reason I'm bringing that up is we have basically three industries in Sitka. That's fishing, healthcare, and then the tourism industry. Of the three, the fishing industry is the only one that is quote unquote recession proof. It doesn't matter how tight money is, people have to eat. People do not have to travel. So this haul out will ensure that there is at least some money coming into the municipality and to the citizens of the municipality in the event that the worst does come to pass. Thank you.
Anyone else on 24-26? Assembly deliberation? Tor?
Yeah, I think some others are going to talk about why we need this for the cement, for the permanent washdown. At an earlier meeting we were at GPIP, that it occurred to me that all the money that we put aside for the haul out was held in our accounts that bear interest. And we shoot for about 4% as a target for our account. I mean, not just the permanent fund, all the money we're holding is always in there. This is about that amount. It's right around 400,000 is the amount we've received in interest, and we can't use that on the haul out because of accounting rules. We could reappropriate 400,000, but we can't just say that interest is from that money. We can't. This is right about the same amount as the money that we've already received for the money that we put aside, the interest that we put aside. So I think it's an appropriate amount. And I think it'll push us over the line or get us pretty close to being able to have a permanent wash down area. And the fabric one makes me nervous just because we'll be replacing it. And so I know we're not going to have this thing completely built out right away, but that's one that we should have from day one. So thank you.
Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just for those listening, for the benefit of those listening, I'm going to ask John the same question I asked him when we were at that ceremony for opening of the construction. The payment made to the city, that's our portion to use as we think is appropriate. But just so people understand, the payments were also made to the fishermen, right? Can you confirm that?
I'm gonna look at a fisherman first, but yes, they have been paid under this program. This is the any municipalities or boroughs that were affected by the disaster also received a payment.
Perfect. Thank you. And this is just the best, this is the perfect place to put it. Also, I was going to say, sometimes some people might be concerned that we don't have the money to finish right away. When we put, the city decided to put the voters, that money, 8.1 million or 8.3 to the haul out. I believe most people knew that wasn't going to pay for all of it. It's kind of seed money. It's because we would have to contribute some ourselves, as well as, it shows buy-in for federal grants. I believe we have received a federal grant to help for some of this, to get the, what's the thing called? The travel lift, sorry. So when you're wanting federal grants, showing that you're invested helps a lot. And I think we've definitely shown that we have skin in the game. So I'm very excited, and I'm grateful for all the people who have worked on the actual project, from the charter all the way to permitting and everything else. It's not done yet, and continues to be a thing. We've been trying to get the feds to do what they say and stop changing the rules. But I appreciate it. Gary, thank you very much. And I think this is good. I'll be a yes.
JJ?
I have a question for John, just to confirm. So by voting yes tonight, we're voting yes that we want this money, that we're putting it towards the haul out, and that it will be for contingency until we decide otherwise?
I may have to call yes to the first two. I'm gonna have to ask Gary to refresh my memory. Where did we? I don't remember if we put this towards the project, or is it okay if Gary comes up to answer this?
Please. Hi, Gary.
Hi. So my understanding is the money will come into the project. And since you all have not designated whether it's going towards the haul out, towards the washdown pad or the contingency until the 26th, because we also have a plan for contingency coming forward, but we first want to get this money in case we had any contingency between now and the 26th. So yes, it will be there for contingency. It will be designated towards the project. And then when we come back on the 26th, we'll have it lined out where this goes and this goes and that goes.
Okay, so we're getting the money in the fund, and next assembly meeting, we're gonna delineate exactly where.
Correct.
Got it. Okay.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm seeing that this is kind of a 2-meeting deal here, but I will, knowing what the board had said in that discussion, some of this will be needed to finish the permanent washdown pad. And that is a huge part of this project. If we did a temporary, it's gonna end up costing more, because eventually we're gonna have to go permanent. So you're basically doing the same thing twice. So this is absolutely monumental to finish it. The one thing I definitely have to say about this money is it was given to us because of the fisheries, and we're putting it towards the fisheries. So this is definitely a good use of these funds, and I think very appropriate. So, yeah.
I'm sure harbors would be clamoring for this money too, but I think they understand the needs and the immediate infrastructure right now. So there's lots of needs for it, but I think to me, it obviously has to go to fisheries, and the completion of our haul out is a community priority right now. So I'm fine allocating it to that. And then I'll have lots of things to say about a permanent washdown pad at our next meeting. Anything further from the assembly? Jess?
Yes, on the motion to approve ordinance 2024-26 on first reading. Mayor Eisenbeis,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Mosier,
Yes.
Mr. Saline,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Pike.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 on item H.
Item I, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-27 on first reading, making supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2025 solid waste vehicle.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance 24-27. John, I understand Amy has an introduction for us.
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Assembly members. Amy Ainsley, Acting Public Works Director. So the solid waste team currently relies on borrowing other vehicles within the Public Works fleet primarily when they need to pick up waste oil at the Harbor Department or some of the larger items from the recycling center. And that can be very logistically challenging, both just waiting on the availability of the truck. Not to mention that the scrapyard is 5 miles away from the Jarvis complex. And so the drive time transferring vehicles back and forth is rather inefficient. So we've been looking into getting a larger heavy duty truck for solid waste. And I want to credit our chief heavy equipment mechanic, Dennis Peterson, for coming up with what I think is a really resourceful idea. So we already had the replacement of one of our ambulances in this year's budget. And normally when we send the ambulance off, if we don't bring the chassis back here to Sitka, we get like a $500 credit. But instead, if we spend, about $20,000, we can essentially have, a new, I think it's an F450. And the engine on that only has about 35,000 miles on it. And so it will be really, I think, meet the needs of our solid waste team really well. So for $20,000 to refurbish, this vehicle versus spending approximately probably $100,000 or more on a new vehicle, I think this is a really good buy for the municipality. And I'm really thankful for the very creative and resourceful suggestion from Dennis on this one.
Thank you. If we have further questions, we'll call you back. Is there any public comment on ordinance 24-27? Back to the assembly for deliberation. Tor?
I gotta laugh. I bought this rig. This is one of mine. It's a Code Blue rig.
Thanks for the check. We appreciate it.
Yeah. No, we administered the grant to pay for a good hunk of this. And I was down there helping build or, get it spec'd out. I think this is great. And I will tell you that we are far from the first people to do this, the first city to do this. If you go behind Braun, which is the place that makes our ambulances, there's a bunch of these. The crew there makes them there sometimes for their own use. If we'd have sold it to them for $500, that's probably what they would do, is turn it into a truck. And because the requirements for an ambulance are very different than otherwise. I mean, if the public works truck doesn't start, it's a pain in the neck. If the ambulance doesn't start, it's, considered possibly life-threatening. So this is not a new thing, and I'm really happy to see this get some more use because we generally give those ambulances a 15-year life, and it's hit it. So and there's a lot of ambulances driving around with that age with less than 30,000. In fact, that's more than a lot of places. So but we've taken care of it, and we'll get good use out of it.
Chris?
Yeah, I'm really happy to see us repurposing a perfectly good vehicle. I've seen it. It's a great truck. I know we probably got one of the best flatbed conversion guys in the state. So I'm happy he'll be the one putting the flatbed on it. So yeah, just really happy to see an asset be able to stay in the fleet.
Well, if I know anything about our chief heavy equipment mechanic, it's that he likes big trucks. So let's go ahead and buy this guy a big truck. Just like Tor didn't write the check. Gotcha. Anything else from the assembly? Yes, please. I'll call you up for some further clarification on the item. Please.
Dennis Peterson, city mechanic. Also, those guys need a bigger truck to tow the 1,000 gallon oil tank around too. We recently just got a new trailer tank that goes around and pumps oil from all our facilities. We are using a 250 right now. It kind of pulls them around. And so this truck will actually help them out beneficially to tow that around. And then, to haul some tires to the waste and whatever else they need to do. Most of the cost is in the flatbed. Shipping is pretty bad. It's $4,000 to get it back. And that was the cheapest through AML. Samson was more expensive. So that's all I have.
Anything further from the assembly? Jess?
Okay, on the motion to approve ordinance 2024-27 on first reading. Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiß,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Mr. Saline.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 on item I.
Item J, please.
I move to approve ordinance 2024-28 on first reading, making supplemental appropriations for fiscal year 2025 Crescent Harbor Courts.
Second.
And once again, Amy, an introduction on this one, please. Thank you.
Thank you all again. So last year, the Assembly approved a resolution to allow us to apply for a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant. These are administered through the state of Alaska through their Division of Outdoor Parks and Recreation. And we were successful. We did receive the grant. And so we need the Assembly's approval to let us accept that grant and to appropriate both the grant funding, which is $125,000, as well as the match. And this is a one-to-one matching grant. And so that's an additional $125,000. The project is for the Crescent Harbor Park. So we're working on resurfacing the tennis courts that are over there, improving some of the fencing and lighting, and trying to do at least some preliminary siting for eventually getting a family restroom into the playground as well. We do have the opportunity to offset our match requirements with donations. The Sitka Recreation Foundation helped to partner with us on the grant application. And so they're working on raising funding, and they're also wanting to help us coordinate volunteers as well, which would be fantastic. We're very much looking forward to working with them and appreciate their support for it. And so if we do get donations from the Sitka Recreation Foundation or others, we can, bring those funds in to offset the project. And the volunteer hours, again, are very valuable, but with, these are federal funds, they're managed by the state, but they are federal. And so the tracking and the documentation around that can be a little bit tricky. And so we're appropriating the full amount for the match, the $125,000, but we're going to be looking for every opportunity we can to offset that with our partners.
Thank you. Is there any public comment on item 24-28?
Good afternoon. The name's Austin Cranford. As mentioned by the acting public works director, she did mention that it's a one-for-one match and free money from the government is always fun. But what really caught my attention was it mentioned, and the director also mentioned it, is that staff will be investigating the financial feasibility of additional improvements in the park under this grant, including lighting and siting for a future restroom facility. I know, speaking with members of the public, the Sitka Sound Science Center, as well as other people in the area, have mentioned that bathrooms are hard to come by in that area. But something I noticed personally is sometimes I'll go downtown and have a drink and walk home. And occasionally I would walk down that boardwalk, and it's extremely dark. And there's no railing between that walkway and the harbor. So it's almost dangerous because there's no lighting for people to see. So normally I cross in front of the pub and then go in front of the high school there to go home. So I am personally approving of this. I hope the assembly does as well. just the lighting would be a big financial help to the community. And I'm sure the businesses in the area would love to see some new bathrooms as well when the tourists are in town. Thank you.
Any other comments on 24-28? Assembly deliberation? Chris?
Could I ask Amy up real quick, just for a little, okay. So I think you kind of answered it already, but I remember this one from sitting in on that Parks and Rec meeting. This did have in-kind matching, right? So that's gonna be more from the volunteers' hours than city staff or anything like that, or how does that work?
Correct. So city staff will still track our time against the project. And so that counts as, our contribution towards the project. But we're also going to, like I said, we're going to be working to try and document and use as many volunteer hours to contribute towards the match. And there may be some actual monetary donation available from Sitka Recreation Foundation. But again, we wanted to be conservative in our estimate and say, even if it all comes out of the city's pocket, it's there and appropriated, and anything that we can offset will, we'll be able to release those funds back to the general fund after the project is over.
Okay, yeah. And I do remember from that meeting that the volunteers were very excited to help on this. So I'm pretty optimistic that they'll be definitely putting in some time and trying to help out. So, yeah.
Question for Amy while she's up here, please.
With this being a supplemental appropriation, it means it's within this current fiscal year. Is there a project start time that we can communicate with the community about this success?
Not as of yet. In terms of, just, execution timeline, it's possible that, we could be, especially for the asphalt work, that generally is done in the, sort of summer season.
Mm-hmm.
It's also really difficult to, coordinate that kind of construction work during the summer season when we have, more public demand for the space and more visitors here and stuff too. So we're still working on kind of what the optimal timeline is going to look like. I believe we have 5 years to expend the funds. We certainly don't intend to wait 5 years to do it. We're actively working on it right now, but the first step was making sure that the assembly wanted us to move forward and accept the funding. So, we've not signed the grant agreement yet. And once we do that, we'll, actually get the procurement process underway and all that.
Great, thank you.
Further questions for Amy or Kevin while they're up here? Kevin, you got off easy. Good work.
Thank you.
Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't really have a question. I just, JJ, what you said about a win, that really hit something, because it is a win. City has lots of challenges, but we also have some wins. One, that we had a team to apply for the grant in the first place. That's huge. And it's only 125, but that's huge. It's something that's going to directly benefit the community. And I really appreciate what you guys are doing, the staff and the community as well at large, who's excited and going to help volunteer and raise funds. It's one of those things where you get huge community buy-in, and I just think it's awesome. And I'm excited. Yeah, I'm excited to see it start.
I think those that play tennis and pickleball will really appreciate it. I don't think the courts send the ball as straight as they should when they hit the ground right now. So that'll be great. And, John, as part of our in-kind contribution, I know Harry's got a real nice striper there. Maybe he can put the stripes down for the pickleball and tennis courts. It'll be a little bit of our donation time. Anything else from the assembly? Jess?
Yes, on the motion to approve ordinance 2024-28 on first reading. Mr. Christensen,
Yes.
Ms. Carlson,
Yes.
Mr. Saline,
Yes.
Mr. Pike,
Yes.
Mr. Yestad,
Yes.
Mr. Mosher,
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeiss.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0 on first reading on item J.
Brings us to item K this evening, which is a discussion direction decision on purchasing an EV transit van for Parks and Rec Division. Amy, you get the spotlight again. And Kevin might not get off so easy this time.
All right, switching hats as your Planning and Community Development Director. So we've been very generously offered a donation from the Sitka Recreation Foundation of approximately $70,000 to $75,000 to help purchase a 15-passenger van for our Parks and Recreation program. I think the Parks and Rec program has been just a wild success. And one of the things that I really appreciate is that as a part of that success, the team has been very vigilant about checking back with program participants to say, what can we be doing better? What would make these programs more valuable to you and more accessible to you? And essentially kind of like the number one concern that we heard from people was transportation, particularly, as it pertains to after-school programs, programs for elders as well. And especially like during the summer offerings, we were able to do a full day summer camp this year, but being able to kind of diversify locations and go to do different things is really limited by our ability to right now we can't really easily move people around. And so again, Sitka Recreation Foundation is looking to donate the money for us to purchase the vehicle. And the $70,000 to $75,000 should be sufficient for us to purchase a gas van, an internal combustion engine. And so the question that we wanted to bring forward to you before we bring a supplemental appropriation to you to accept those donation funds is to see whether the city and borough of Sitka is interested in appropriating additional funding in order to purchase an EV version of the van. And so it would be approximately $40,000 to $45,000 additional funding. And Bree did some fantastic analysis that was included in your packet as well about the full life cycle cost of the ICE versus the EV models on those. They're fairly close. And of course, as to towards earlier comments during when we met with the Sustainability Commission about looking at life cycle costs and fuel costs and essentially buying our own fuel for EVs from our electric department, those things approximately even out to some extent. And so this request did also go in front of the Sustainability Commission. Their recommendation was to move forward with an EV. But again, we wanted to bring this as a discussion item to you first before we bring a supplemental appropriation your way.
Thank you. Questions for Amy while she's in front of us, John?
Well, I'll ask Amy the question, and I just want this clarification for the public. Neither of the vans cost 75, like we're not going and buying a sticker price $75,000 van or a sticker price $115,000 EV. That is the life cycle cost of it. So that is the purchase price plus the future maintenance and establishing a fund to support it, correct?
That is the sticker price.
Oh, well.
Vans are very expensive these days.
Chris and then Tim.
I got a couple questions for you. I guess where would the charging location for this thing be? And do we have that infrastructure already in place, or is that something else we would have to invest in?
We're looking into it. There is the possibility that we did reserve some of the funding from the EECBG program, the energy block grant. We did reserve some of that for municipal chargers, and so we might be able to use that funding for it. The chargers themselves aren't terribly expensive, but they are an additional cost. And so we're, if the direction is for us to move forward with this vehicle being an EV, that is going to help inform our decision about where we need to be strategically placing charging stations for municipal vehicles. Ideally, it would be good to be able to locate one at Blatchley as opposed to having to drive the vehicle off site, charge it, bring it back. But, making sure that has, its own power, or at least that we're a counting for that appropriately with how we split utility bills at that whole building between the city and the school district is not without complication. So it's a great point. I don't have a solid answer for you, but if we do decide to move forward on the EV for this particular vehicle, we're expecting that we'll be able to, the funding for the charger won't be difficult, but there is going to be some logistics to work out.
Okay, and then second question, maybe this is more for Kevin. We'll see. How much do you think that this vehicle will get used? I guess, how many miles are we gonna rack up on this thing?
Yeah, I am gonna call Kevin for that one.
Can I add a rider on there, Kevin? Also in which seasons, specifically summer versus winter use?
Sure. Kevin Knox, the Parks and Recreation Coordinator. We don't have good historical data to really compare to at this point because the program's so new. But to give you an idea, this past summer with our summer programming in the summer camp, we had demand for vehicle use, though we couldn't always get it. We did have a partnership with Sail in order to be able to utilize their vans. But we had demand for it at least twice a week. And that was us programming things very conservatively. So I would expect that for our summer programming, we could definitely use it at least 4 to 5 times a week. And then outside of our summer programming, I would say that, we're utilizing it multiple times a week, not driving really far. Most of these trips are pretty short because we're staying mostly within the downtown core, unless we're doing special things outside of that. So, not a lot of miles. We do have some anecdotal data I guess just comment from the current EV van that Custodial uses within the city, that they're not needing to charge this vehicle very often, and they drive a lot, quite a bit more than I would anticipate our program using it. So from a charging standpoint and a consumption standpoint, I don't believe that Parks and Rec is going to have a real high demand there.
Off-site, and then once it's charged, bring it back to site potentially as an option.
I guess it could be an option. Like Amy said, it wouldn't be ideal to do that, but yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I guess my question is about insurance. Like, do we have insurance currently to transport people? I mean, maybe that's the Melissa question. I don't know. Is there a cost for increasing transportation, the city taking on a transportation role in this way? And is that built into this somewhere?
Yeah, again, Melissa could correct me if I'm wrong, but under our current general liability insurance and how we operate our programming, we do have some coverage.
So I did confirm with our insurance company, we are covered. We should have an internal policy kind of, giving guidelines on who is able to transport. But yeah, that will all be covered. It's a normal municipal activity, so.
So no increased cost. JJ?
That kind of surprises me because this is a 15-passenger van and they have a history of challenges. I had to get special training to be able to drive a 15-passenger van for Montana State University. It was a very cute little card that they gave me. And it involved an online test and a driving test in order to pick people up at the airport. So I find that very questionable, especially because these are kids and, Sitka has had an incident in the past with injuries from a 15-passenger van accident through the school district. And that I would very encourage us to look into that further because these are considered unsafe vehicles unless there's some sort of update that's happened in the last 20 years.
So the vans that we used this past summer with the sale vans were also 15 passenger vans. And there isn't an additional required training by the state. The drivers that did use those vans went through a brief training with sale with their own internal policies for the van use. But there wasn't any additional training that anybody had to go through.
With the sale van, is that the one with the lift in the back?
They have one with and one without, I believe, and I believe we're using the one without.
Oh, so we're talking mini buses here.
Right.
That is different than a van in my
Right.
opinion.
The sale buses are mini buses. The vehicle purchase that we're looking at is a Ford Transit van.
Okay, I think there's some investigation there needed for me to be comfortable with buying a 15 passenger van to transport kids.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, given that we're just having a discussion tonight and again, these are great questions for us so that we are prepared when we bring the supplemental appropriation back to you. And so still lots of time for us to look into these things and bring them back for you. And yeah, happy to receive these kinds of questions so we can look into them. But then, you know, we'll have you know, tonight's decision is far from final. We're just kind of getting direction about, you know, whether we should be moving forward with this and how.
Couple more questions. Is this to transfer within a program or pick up and drops offs after programs?
Mostly within, but there may be opportunities for us to drop off after, not in a bus, like a bus program or something like that. But if there was, for example, this last summer, we partnered with a number of organizations with our summer programming. Our programming was all in the afternoon. Almost all the other youth programming was all in the morning. In order for some kids to go from the morning programs to our afternoon programs, some of those programs were able to bring kids by. We could actually go and pick them up and bring them in. If we had something else that was similar where ours were in the morning and then an afternoon program was going on, we could bring kids to that. But it wouldn't be anything. We don't have the staffing or the resources to do like individual drop-offs or other things like that. This would be group stuff mostly.
Big group stuff. That helps me because reading the policy for drive, that R in drive is right size. So if it was some sort of, you know, shuttling of kids in advance of things, 15 passengers seems extensive. Has there been some targeting to right size? Is it 11 passengers perhaps more ideal, or is it 15 passengers needed?
Part of the reason why we look at the 15 passengers because we're also considering staffing for a summer program. It's not one staff to 10 kids or something like that. It's usually closer to 12 or 13 kids that we're shuttling around, and we always have 2 staff with them at least.
Thank you.
I was gonna say,
Tor?
well, I just want to bring it back here. Tonight, this was advertised to decide whether or not we want to try and buy an EV or get an ICE vehicle. And this isn't the time we're talking about buying a vehicle that's coming up, any vehicle. So it sounds like this, I mean, the discussion tonight is, do we want to pursue getting an electric vehicle versus a gas vehicle? And that whether or not to buy a vehicle would come up during the appropriation. And so it seems like a lot of these questions are more geared towards any vehicle. And it was advertised, and the question is, do we want to try and, if we're going to get a vehicle at all, do we want to try and get an electric one?
Kevin?
Yeah, I am putting the discussion about the safety and everything. I am fully in support of investing in the electric vehicle. Obviously, the fact that the Sitka Recreation Foundation is giving us $75,000 for that, it's a big deal. For a nonprofit. So I'm really grateful for you guys looking into that and finding all getting, all this analysis done. I personally don't have any problem with 15 passenger vehicles. But again, I think Kevin brought up a good point. If you're trying to get like as many kids as you can, and then you have to make multiple trips, I have the staff to be able to do that. And this is only getting more and more popular. And I think it's another area where the community really has buy-in and really, this has a potential to grow. So my only question is, if for some reason the assembly decides that we're not comfortable with a 15 passenger van, it'd be possible to do the same thing EV with one of the smaller ones, right?
Yeah, so the EV that Bree investigated actually has it has tracks on the floor, so you can configure it in different ways. So it could be, the potential for it to be reduced down to 12 or a different passenger configuration is there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Yeah, so I support the electric vehicle option. I support the 15 passenger van, but trying to think what else here. I'm happy that we have this problem. This is a good problem to have. I think of kids who are, struggling in school or what have you, or just need extra help. I think this helps the most vulnerable in our community to be able to have access to something that's a very positive influence. And I appreciate this. Thank you.
A couple things on this one for me, and Kevin, it's why I had you talk about summer and winter. If we look at these models, the electrical vehicle is a front wheel drive, and the regular vehicle has the ability to be all-wheel drive, or is all-wheel drive, providing a higher degree of safety in the wintertime and more access in the wintertime. So that's a large part for me. As the conversation has come up, there was a comment indicating that this vehicle is going to be used for short trips and not very much, so that the charge could last for a while. If we're using short trips and we're not using it frequently, the amount of carbon that we'd be offsetting in this vehicle is also significantly lower than, say, the maintenance or the cleaning vans that run on a basically continual circuit every single day. So while our strategic plan and our sustainability commission goals have indicated that we will transfer our fleet, the impacts of this transfer is smaller compared to others. I also wonder if we're not getting just a little bit ahead of ourselves here. We've been given a gift of a certain amount that will buy us a van that will suffice and will get the job done and will be much better than what we currently have now. But we're looking at that next level up, and we're looking at spending more money when this gift can get us where we need to be already. So I think I'm at the point of keeping our gift and staying with the regular van for this instance, and utilizing the $75,000 that's being transferred to just get a van that's very sufficient and will work out very, very well. We're not necessarily following our goals here, but I'm not seeing the value in the extra bit of funding there. So that's my thought, is to stick with the all-wheel drive, regularly fueled vehicle. Tor?
Yeah. So I've been writing notes on this, and I went and checked on the Ford website to look at the various van configurations. So my first of all thoughts, I thought about the all-wheel drive and front-wheel drive, excuse me. And where this is going, a front-wheel drive with winter tires will get you there. I mean, if it's too bad for that, it's probably too bad for an all-wheel drive as well. And I'm kind of a tire geek on that. And I know there's, for years, this type of van wasn't available in four-wheel drive. And I know of ambulances in Norway that run them with front-wheel drive and snow tires. And as far as, you know, I really think that the short trip thing is actually as much of an argument for an electric because they're much more efficient with short. And if you are running an errand or running and going out with just a few people in it, it's much more efficient. And the short trips are when internal combustion engines are at their worst, and short trips are where electric vehicles are at their best. And I think that again, and this presupposes gas prices stay roughly where they are. And I think that's an extremely dangerous way to go. And I think that you're essentially looking at lifetime cost, even with current prices, the same way. And again, it doesn't take into account that we're paying ourselves. I can tell you that a level 2 charger, which is what you would use, I know this because I installed one yesterday, cost $500. And a level 2 charger can charge it, you know, between 40 and 50 amps, and it's going to charge it up very quickly. So I see this as sticking with our sustainability goals. I think we should go with the electric van because number one, I think ultimately, you know, it's probably going to cost less than this because we always worst case scenario these. And I was just checking websites, and they're significantly less than that. And so we can, you know, I know we always worst case scenario on our purchases like that, but I don't think it's going to cost that much. And I think over the course of the thing, it will save us. And again, at the end of the day, we're paying ourselves and not Petro or West or Marine. So regardless of the economic value or the ecological value, I think we're going to come out a little bit ahead monetarily. So I think we should stick with the electric.
Chris?
So I did a bit of research on this one because I was really curious. You know, building an electric vehicle is, I didn't know what the carbon cost was. So I actually started digging through some reports, and there was actually a pretty good one that I found, and they took a lot of things into consideration and even used Alaska as an example. And for a Tesla Model S, it takes nearly 27,000 miles to equal the same carbon footprint as a standard Honda Accord or something comparable to that Tesla. So that's why I asked how many miles that would be going on to this, because I had a feeling it might not rack up that many miles either. I'm not against it really. You know, I think EVs definitely have a place in our fleet. I was just worried that this one maybe wouldn't, just because of lack of use. I just don't know how many years is it going to take to put that many miles on this vehicle. And then, you know, there's also the cost of it. It's nearly $40,000, or it is $40,000 more. So I've just been really struggling with, is this vehicle the right one to switch over to an EV or not? I'm leaning towards just staying with the internal combustion engine on this one. But I'm also not going to cry if we do go the EV route. But I definitely did want to say that because EVs are not carbon equal as to an internal combustion engine. So yeah, I guess that's kind of my point. So yeah, however this goes tonight, I'm fine with, but I'm leaning towards an ICE engine.
I guess at this point in the evening, I hear two very distinctly sides and points of view on this one. So I think we'll have to have a motion in order to provide some direction. That way we can vote up or down either one of the vehicles. Vote up or down either one of the vehicles, and that'll give Parks and Rec some clues going forward.
All And I move to direct the, I guess, Parks Department, Parks and Recreation Division to move to purchase an EV transit van for their recreational division if they purchase one.
Second.
I'm just going to put that last in there in case we don't approve the.
It's been moved and seconded to direct the Parks and Rec Department to purchase an EV 15 passenger van for their needs. Is there any public comment?
Hi, my name is Leah Mason. I live in a household with 2 electric vehicles, and anytime the question between do we go with an internal combustion engine or an electric vehicle, I find that we're often dealing with an absolute, I hate to use this word again, dearth of knowledge about the electric vehicle. And often what people do not incorporate into their thinking is the amazing lack of maintenance that goes along with an electric vehicle. Ours are 10, coming up to, the youngest one is coming up to 10 years old, and we do nothing other than change the tires on it and look at its brakes every once in a while. And when you consider these conversations, if you look at ferry service, for example, we have internal combustion engines on the ferries, and the damn things are out of service all the time. So it's not a small thing to consider maintenance as an issue. And the ride has the same kind of problems. The people who run the ride say, oh, what about the maintenance? Well, there's not a lot of it. So I think it's worth considering that. And I think it's also worth considering that the way I drive one of our electric vehicles, I'm getting 3.2 miles per kilowatt hour. And I'm spending anywhere between 15, depending on the season, and 29 cents for that privilege. So the mileage situation, even now, is pretty phenomenal for what you're getting on the electric vehicle. And as you've noted, you're paying yourselves for it. So I think that's a set of important things to take into account. Thank you.
Any other public comment on purchasing an EV transit van for Parks and Rec? Further assembly deliberation? Kevin?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted one more opportunity to speak. Wanted to thank everyone for your opinions and your thought. Everyone has brought a lot of thought into this, and I respect everyone's decision here. It's making me think. I still would like to do the EV version, but I don't think it's going to win. So I don't want that to be thought of as, well, they're not going to ever get EVs or what have you for the future. I think the arguments here have been very thoughtful, and I understand where you're coming from. I'll be honest, I will be disappointed if we don't go that with this, but there will be others in the future. We just need to keep plugging away. Thank you.
Anything further? Jess?
Yes, on the motion to direct the Parks and Rec Department to purchase an EV transit van. Ms. Carlson?
No.
Mr. Yestad?
No.
Mr. Saline?
Yes.
Mr. Mosier?
Yes.
Mayor Eisenbeis?
No.
Mr. Pike?
Yes.
Mr. Christensen?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-3.
Great, thank you for that discussion assembly. It is past the hour. There are just a couple more items on our agenda. Does anyone need a break at this point? We'll take a brief recess and then come and finish up the agenda. All right, we are seated. We'll get through our last agenda item here. A couple more things after that. Item L, this is a discussion direction decision on signing on to a op-ed from AML regarding BABA. John has an introduction. I have some follow-up on that. Please.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I hope everybody had the chance to read the op-ed. We've heard a lot about the Build America, Buy America requirements, and it's become very challenging for Alaska, given our limitations on where we can source materials and how we can get things here, and especially how that plays in with timelines on spending. So this is a topic that has come up at many AML meetings. So a lot of municipalities are facing similar challenges, and AML wrote this and asked for municipalities to sign on. And given our structure of government, it's hard to just say, yes, we'll sign on without getting full concurrence of the body. So that's why that is in front of you now to provide that guidance, and then the mayor would sign on behalf of the city and borough if you agree with the contents of the op-ed.
Yeah, that's why you see the mayor signing on this. It's not an issue that I felt the assembly could speak with one voice on without giving the assembly an opportunity to hear the voice. And I view this role as not being able to speak for the assembly, but being able to speak as the assembly. So it may be supported unanimously, it may not, but that's why we're here in front of you to get your thoughts on it. And then if we do sign on, we'll forward this with the municipality's signature essentially to AML. Is there any discussion on this one from Chris?
I'm not sure if there's an answer for this, but is there any feel for how our congressional delegates do feel about this? Or if signing on to something like this, are we going to get punished?
We've heard multiple times in their offices their frustrations with it as well. I think that they understand the intent there, but they also understand the crippling effect for Alaska.
Okay. How fast can this move? I just see with the new administration coming in to the White House, this might not. Well, or just go well. It might not be received well. I don't know, or make it very far.
Let me see. About that quick.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll be forwarded on, shortly after this meeting, if the assembly chooses to do as such. JJ?
I think it looks great. I think the intent and the execution is well done.
I guess I'm not hearing any opposition to it. Just want to confirm that there is no opposition from the assembly of us signing on as a body.
That's correct, at least for as far as I'm concerned.
Okay. Understood. Thank you all. I appreciate that. We'll get that out here shortly. That wraps up the regular agenda for this evening. That'll bring us to persons to be heard. This is public participation for any item on or off tonight's agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes.
Good evening. The name is Oscar Cranford. I did just want to mention that I am against the mayor's signing the waiver for the Build America Build America, Buy America Act. There we go. I found it. It's specifically in the code on the Federal Register mentions infrastructure projects, iron and steel, specifically infrastructure projects, and then states iron and steel products, manufactured products, or construction materials as what that applies to. So it's not encompassing the entire state, only certain projects. Not only that, with the incoming administration, we could see, are likely to see tariffs on imported goods, which means that this will be a moot point because the steel here would be cheaper than purchasing steel from a foreign nation. The reason I came up here today, actually, though, switching topics, is rumor has it, and what I'm kind of seeing on court view is that the city has basically lost the Baranoff Taxi LLC versus Chief Beatty with, I guess, the city conspiring. And my question regarding that is, one, since the lawsuit was specifically against Chief Beatty, but the city is providing legal representation to the chief, one, what is going to be the cost to the city if what people are saying and what court view is kind of predicting, what would be the cost to the city and to the people? And then would the chief be liable of paying any of that back to the city if the court does rule in favor of the plaintiff? And then my second question is, I did read through the docket, and one of the arguments that the city's legal counsel made was that it was not a separation of powers violation because the chief is both allowed to, well, his interpretation of the law is basically the city's interpretation of the law. And the court basically rejected that view, saying that it was a separation of powers violation. Obviously, we're not the federal government or the state government, but my understanding is the assembly is the legislation, the chief, and the city administrator is the executive, and then the courts are the judicial branch. So basically, it sounds like the city has given an executive authority, in this case, the chief of police, the ability to interpret laws, which goes to the courts. And my question regarding that is basically, where is that listed in code, and whose decision was it to basically give judicial and legislative powers to the executive branch of the city? Thank you.
My name is Leah Mason. I would just like to state, for the benefit of the listening public, that the decision to go forward with an MOU was very confused from the audience. We had a lot of people saying that it wouldn't matter because we could change it at any time, and others saying that we needed it for consistency and certainty. And I find this matter for despair, actually, that this is the kind of conversation the people who run our government can have. Our data was garbage. Our task force was stacked with business interests. To say that the city, the community's interests were expressed by the task force and that this is a reason to go ahead with it is difficult for me to encompass. And I would like to state again that this is unnecessary, and most of you have spoken in one way or another to its lack of necessity. And I'd like for you to process that and be clear that this is not something that the community has said yes to. It's something that you have actively prevented the community from saying anything really about over and over again by getting in their way, instituting a task force which was stacked with business people, rather than letting it go to the people who will be affected by it. Thank you.
Anyone else under persons to be heard? Seeing none, we'll move on to reports this evening. I just wanted to thank Tim and his first meeting as deputy mayor. He presided in my absence, so thank you for that, Tim. I'm trying to give you a little more heads up next time, but was able to attend a GPIP meeting just a couple days ago. I felt it necessary to be there just to hear the thoughts and concerns of the fishing fleet as we move forward in our haul out project. A couple interesting things came out of there. Number one, the fleet dramatically cares about the haul out. It is something that they most definitely want. They need this to to come to fruition. I also think that there was a lot of misinformation out there. And unfortunately, it sounds like some of that misinformation kind of stewed in a circle to a point where it became vastly overblown. And I think the comment I want to make out of this is to remind people that we are building this for the community. If you think that the assembly or GPIP is acting against the fleet or against the community, like, let's talk about that. Please talk to me about that. But the reason we're doing this is for you and for the community. So those concerns that you had about pricing and all those future items, those will be worked forward. It's never been our intent to have a closed yard that you can't work on your own boat on, but yet that was reiterated multiple times that we're going to have a closed yard, and it's just simply not the case. So again, this haul out is for the community. It was designated by the community to happen, and that is the direction that I continue to charge forward on when we make decisions at this table. How is this haul out facility going to help and facilitate the needs of our community? John, Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to thank the Assembly for participating in the strategic planning workshop last week. A lot of great engagement. The updates that were presented in that workshop will be made in the next few weeks. The plan is hopefully to have those changes in front of the Assembly for adoption at December 17th is the meeting we're hoping for. We can build that into onto our next budget cycle as we discuss priorities and where we're gonna focus strategically focus our efforts next. I think as the plan comes forward, this is good for the community to hear, is that we talked about whether or not items should be marked off as complete on that strategic plan. If you see anything that says it's marked complete, it doesn't mean that it was done and we're moving on. It means that it's been addressed. We've made significant efforts, and sometimes those things have just been incorporated into our day-to-day operations. So it's going to be an ongoing effort. But really excited to see the updates to this plan coming out, and again, thanking the Assembly for your engagement and assistance on that last week.
Thank you. Rachel, an attorney's report.
No news, just getting settled into the workflow for internal things and building relationships with outside counsel on litigation matters. Things are moving smoothly.
Smooth is good. Thank you. Liaison representatives. I gave Chris's report for him, so he doesn't have to. Jess, clerk's report.
Yes, so we have quite a few vacancies on board and commissions. We have the Animal Hearing Board, the Employment Relations Board, Health Needs and Human Services Commission, Historic Preservation Commission, the Investment Committee, the Local Emergency Planning Committee, Police and Fire Commission, and Sustainability Commission. So if you want to apply for any of those seats, please see us at the clerk's office or give us a call at 747-1826. Also, we have assembly training on Saturday, November 16th from 9 to noon, which is this Saturday. I'll be sending you a reminder text on Friday. We have government to government dinner on Wednesday, November 18th at 6 o'clock at Harrigan Hall, room 1. And then we have our December regular assembly meetings have been rescheduled to December 17th and December 30th.
Great, thank you. Any other reports this evening? Seeing none, that would bring us to adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Assembly and staff. We are adjourned. And public who stayed to the very end.